everybody, and welcome to Casagrandes Chats, a podcast dedicated to the Loud House spin-off series, the Casagrandes. And I'm your host, Sunny, and welcome to episode 10 of Casagrandes Chats. It is the episode 10 special for my podcast today. And since I recorded episode 9 with my friend Sarin, which we did our collab podcast together, I thought about doing an episode 10 special, but I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do for my 10th episode of Casagrandes Chats, because I didn't think I was going to make 10 episodes of this podcast, but here we are on episode 10 of the show. And I'm so happy with all the support I've gotten with the fandom through this podcast, and I'm really grateful for everybody who's listened to my podcast. So thank you all for all the support. And I wanted to make this episode a very special one, talking about a topic that I'm very passionate about. But I was thinking about what topic should I talk about for episode 10? And I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Lincoln and Ronnie Anne, aka Ronniekin, my OCP of the Loud House / the Casagrandes. And especially since the horoscope came out like a couple of weeks ago, there's just so much to talk about with that episode. And I discussed it with my friend Wyoming Parmesan, aka Nat, on the show. But after that episode has been out for a long time, it got me thinking about the Ronniekin relationship as a whole, and this whole thought about, I really wanted to discuss their relationship and how much it is developed throughout the series, because, you know, a lot of us Ronniekin fans have been wanting an episode dedicated to this pairing for a very long time in the shows, and to know that we actually got an episode dedicated to their relationship was crazy to me. It's still crazy to me that the horoscope is an actual episode that exists, but after watching it and thinking about their relationship in the main show, it's crazy to think how far they've come from the beginning to the end. That's what I want to do on this special, which I'm calling the Lincoln and Ronnie Story, which is a reference to the Kermit and Piggy story special that the Muppets did on one of their VHSs. They did a special about Kermit and Piggy's relationship. So this one I want to focus on the Lincoln and Ronnie Anne relationship, because I am very dedicated to their relationship. They're my two favorite characters from both shows, and I've been very invested in their relationship since day one, obviously. So this is going to be, of course, a Casa-Minisode, because we're not talking about any news or any episodes, because of course we are on a hiatus, and you know, I'm going to be on hiatus for a very long time until the shows come back. So I wanted to see if I could do an episode for my podcast before we officially go on hiatus, and I wanted to save it to be talking about the Lincoln and Ronnie Anne relationship, because of course I've talked about it so much on Twitter, but I think it's better to hear somebody actually talk about it rather than read it, because, you know, a lot of people like to hear other people's opinions on voice rather than on text. So I thought that maybe putting all my thoughts about the Ronnie relationship into one episode will give a clearer perspective on why I'm so passionate about these two, and why the horoscope as an episode not only impacts the relationship right now, but impacts it more to the point where it changes up everything that's happened to them throughout the series and, of course, the spin-off. So we're going to start from the beginning. So Ronnie Anne Santiago was first introduced in the episode Heavy Metal in Season 1. And we did not see her face in that episode. We only heard about her as being a bully to Lincoln. Like, we didn't actually know who was bullying Lincoln in that episode until we found out it was a girl. Then all the Loud Sisters got excited about, oh, well, she's teasing you, that means she likes you. And that obviously does not hold up till today. But then when Lincoln kind of got this idea of, oh, wait, maybe she does like me. It's like, oh, me? You think she might like me? How would I know? Like, he got kind of excited about the idea of a girl liking him despite her teasing him. And then when he went to go and kiss her, she hit him and got a black eye. But then at the end of the episode, we learned that her name is Ronnie Anne Santiago, and she apologized to Lincoln and gave him a note and a stake for his eyes. So it was kind of clear that she kind of did like him in the end, but from not seeing her face, we didn't know much about her, but it was still kind of an interesting introduction for the character, because even though we did not see her at all, we still kind of learned about her being, like, you know, teasing Lincoln in this way, even though she kind of liked him. But when we get to horoscope, of course, I want to talk about how her quote-unquote crush on Lincoln was probably not really much of a crush, as in, like, kind of a sort of platonic infatuation in a way, you know? Like, now that I think about it, it's like, maybe she did have a crush on Lincoln. Like, it was like, oh, well, he's kind of cute, I guess, but I don't really know him that well. But when we get to, like, the future with them, I could definitely see now that her feelings are more real, whereas here it's like, oh, he's just a boy in my class, he's kind of cute, I guess, but I have, like, no way of, like, talking to him, or even would I even be friends with him? Like, no possible way. So Heavy Metal was definitely, like, starting to show Roddy as a character, even though we did not see her physically, but I don't know, it was a good introduction for her, honestly, because we did not see her, and of course she was teasing Lincoln, but, you know, you can discuss that among yourselves. Like, I'm just like, it's kind of interesting to introduce a character off screen before we actually do see them physically in the show. So, you know, it's kind of interesting to look back at Heavy Metal and be like, oh, Lincoln thought that she hated him. Like, it's like, whoa, like, he actually thought that she hated him. She hated his guts, but in the end, of course, she didn't actually hate him. It's just more like she really didn't know how to approach him because she doesn't know how to make friends, which obviously, you know, that connects to some more things coming up in the future. So I would say for now, when you look back at it, you're like, oh, well, Roddy clearly did not know how to make friends. So, you know, she didn't really do the best thing by trying to prank a kid to get his attention. So, and then we get to Save the Date, which was actually my first episode of The Loud House. It was the first episode I watched ever of the show, because I saw a promotional picture of it on Tumblr with Lincoln and Ronnie Anne next to each other, and I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen this episode, but I'm kind of intrigued by this idea of this boy having a crush, because, of course, I love shipping, as I've been mentioned before. You know, I love ships and stuff, but, you know, I've been really fascinated with romance my entire life. I mean, my birthday's on Valentine's Day, but I think it was more like the first time I ever decided I really liked romance was when I first got introduced to Stitch and Angel from Lilo and Stitch, and that's when I kind of developed this, like, interest in romance for some reason. So whenever I see a show that, like, you know, hints at the idea of the main character having a crush, or they introduce a crush for the main character, or develop, like, some kind of romantic relationship in any show, I'm kind of intrigued by it. So to know that, like, the main character was going to get a love interest in this episode, I'm like, oh, well, I might want to watch that. So yeah, and of course I watched Save the Date, and I, you know, was very curious about how Lincoln treated Ronnie Anne in the episode, because, you know, now that you look back at it, man, like, Lincoln, like, really just hated Ronnie, and, like, she thought she was gross, annoying, and weird. Like, he didn't want to be friends with her at all. Like, you just, like, think about it, and you're like, was she really that bad? Because, like, then he's like, oh, I thought she was raised by trolls. I'm like, whoa, Lincoln, like, do you really think that about her? Like, is she really that bad? But then, like, when you look at Shell Shock, you kind of are conflicted by, yeah, maybe Ronnie was kind of bad for the way she acted in school. Like, you kind of denied that, but Lincoln did not care about Ronnie whatsoever. Like, he didn't care about her feelings. Once she, like, ran off and cried, he was just like, she's the toughest girl in school, she can handle it. But then, of course, he had to go on the date with Ronnie and to apologize to her, because, of course, Bobby is Ronnie Anne's brother, and then Lori's dating Bobby, and they broke up and stuff. But then when Lincoln and Ronnie Anne were finally alone, and they started bonding over Bobby and Lori being so, you know, mushy and cutesy and stuff like that. And now that we have Living Casa Loud, and they continue that with Lincoln and Ronnie Anne still making fun of Lobby, that's, like, the greatest thing ever to me. I never thought they would ever reference that again, but the fact that they actually referenced something from season 1, Save the Date, where Lincoln and Ronnie Anne were making fun of Lobby, and that's really the one thing that actually brought them together, was great to actually see they finally referenced it again, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So then when Lincoln and Ronnie, of course, bonded, Lincoln started warming up to her. Then eventually, you know, he kind of said the same thing like he did in the beginning, but, like, it was more like he didn't want the guys to think that Ronnie was his girlfriend, and then he apologized to Ronnie and kissed her. And I got so excited when I saw the kiss. I'm like, okay, well, I've sold the show now. Like, it was like, oh, like, Lincoln's okay. Like, he's just kind of mean, though. But then the moment I saw him apologize to Ronnie, and I'm like, oh, he's really sweet and stuff. Then he kissed Ronnie, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm into the show now. Like, I want to see if this goes anywhere, you know? Like, and of course, we all know the kiss really didn't impact the relationship in a way where it's like, oh, if they kissed, that means they're a couple now. No, it didn't really do that. But it did actually impact the relationship in a way where now they're friends. Because then Ronnie Anne did, you know, she kind of punched Lincoln to show the kids that they're not dating, but then it was more like she was just trying to stand up for him, which was great. But then, you know, like, they're not an official couple, obviously. And then in Dance Dance Resolution, Ronnie Anne returns in the episode. I'm saying Dance Dance first before April Fool's Rules, because technically April Fool's Rules is first in the canon episode order. But when they were released, when the episodes premiered back in, like, season 1, Dance Dance was first, and then they premiered April Fool's Rules. I don't know why, but that's just how it happened. But yeah, so Dance Dance Resolution, Ronnie Anne returned, and I remember seeing the description for this episode for Dancing to be like, oh my gosh, Lincoln's going on dates with 4 girls. I swear to God, I was like, I hope this means that Ronnie Anne is one of them. And the moment that Ronnie Anne came back, because I remember that specific day, I was out with my mother because I was doing a project for community college at the time. I remember Ryan. I remember this conversation I had with Ryan like a long time ago. If Ryan even remembers this, he texted me on Twitter saying, "Oh, you were right. Ronnie Anne does return in the episode." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, because I couldn't see it that day, so I was so upset because I missed the episode when it premiered. But I did watch it eventually, and I was like so happy that Ronnie Anne returned. And of course, like Ronnie Anne showed that they were actually starting to become friends. Because you see in the end, like, you kind of see that Lincoln still has those feelings that he doesn't really trust Ronnie Anne now yet, and even April Fool's Rules implies that too, where, he's kind of, trying to be her friend, but he still doesn't trust her yet, where it's like, oh, I thought that Ronnie Anne was going to invite me to the dance. But then Rusty even asked him, like, oh, I thought you liked Ronnie Anne, and he says, I do, but then, like, goes on to talk about the arcade. But then, like, seeing that where Rusty had asked Lincoln if he does like Ronnie Anne, and he says yes, that does imply that Lincoln does have feelings for Ronnie Anne, but I think it's more like, oh, I like her kind of because we're starting to become friends, but we're not really close yet, So it's like, yeah, I like her now because we became friends kind of and saved the date, but I'm not like at that point where I have the feelings for her. We will get to that later. But then, at the end of the episode, Ronnie Anne does come to see Lincoln, and she was like, oh, I just wanted to invite you to the arcade like you wanted to, because it was a 2-for-1 sale, and of course they went to the arcade together and danced together, and we got that ship tease. But then, like the moment they look at each other, I'm like, oh my gosh, and then they just like dance together, like, ugh, couple goals, am I right? Yeah, it was nice that Ronnie Anne returned that episode, and we were able to see the Lincoln and Ronnie relationship develop a little bit more, because of course they're not official couple, but it's good to see that they're actually continuing to grow their friendship in some sort of way. And then April Fool's Rules, we had the Ronnie Anne cameo. Like, I remember when that episode came out, I watched that live, and I did not think that Ronnie Anne was even going to be mentioned or even appear in that episode. But the moment that Lincoln gets a text from Ronnie Anne, and he says, oh, hang on, Clyde, Ronnie Anne texted me. I'm like, what? Excuse me? Ronnie Anne's in this episode? Like, I feel like, I was like, oh, well, she's probably not going to actually physically appear. It's more like, oh my god, he actually mentioned her in an episode. Like, that was crazy. But then when she actually physically appeared at the end of the episode, I was shocked. My mind was blown. I was like, they actually had Ronnie Anne appear in this episode. And of course, she stood up for Lincoln too when she threw the pie in Luann's face, because it's kind of like open to interpretation about whether Ronnie Anne wanted to be on Luann's plan of pranking Lincoln, or she went along with it because she knew that Luann would do this, and then she knew that Lincoln would stand up for her, and then she went behind Luann's back. But, I mean, she had the pie prepared. I guess she was going to prank Lincoln, but then when she heard that he set up all the pranks for her to protect her, she actually had a change of heart. But it was more like, oh, well, if I set up all the pranks, Ronnie Anne will polarize me, which, again, season 1 is like, it's like, yeah. It's like Lincoln still doesn't trust her. He's like, oh, if she gets hit with the pranks, she's gonna like be mad at me. Like, yeah, it's still like, oh, they're friends, but he still doesn't really trust her and still has that kind of view on her being very aggressive. But then again, at the end, she did stand up for him, and they went off to have milkshakes together. And I still say when Luann says that girl's a keeper to Ronnie Anne, I still think Luann's plan, honestly, was to set Lincoln and Ronnie Anne up on a date, even if that wasn't really the case. It still feels like that she was setting them up on a date, honestly. I read that like that whole scene was like, oh, she's setting them up on a date. But it was, again, those were 2 good episodes to show after Save the Date that Lincoln and Ronnie Anne are friends now, but it's more like, oh, they're kind of still in that point where they're not really friends. It's just kind of like, oh, we enjoy each other's company, but we're not really close yet. And then Ronnie Anne did not appear again in season 1, which was very upsetting to me, because, Bobby, being her brother, was appearing like all the time in season 1, because of course being Lori's boyfriend. But then like Ronnie Anne never got a appearance again. She was only mentioned twice after that. She was mentioned in Fair to Remember, where Lenny says, she says to Lori, why would you hang out with Bobby's little sister Ronnie Anne? She could have been the sister you never had. Like, yeah, you should have hung out with Ronnie Anne, honestly, Lori. But I don't really like that, because that means that, like, Ronnie Anne's not really important to Lori, and that makes it very, like, a weird undertone like that. Like, I know it's supposed to be for a joke, but, like, Lori, that's your boyfriend's sister. Have a little respect for her, honestly. Like, she's gonna be your future sister-in-law, I'm just saying. But, like, regardless of that, like, she should have hung out with Ronnie, and that episode would have been, like, 100 times better if it would have been Ronnie, but no, it had to be Clyde. But I just don't like that because, again, you're pushing Ronnie under the rug like she's nothing, and it's like, she's kind of important now. She's one of Lincoln's friends now, a potential love interest, but you treat her like she's crap. It's like, not good, you know, especially because, again, that's Bobby's little sister, Lori. You know, you should at least hang out with her sometime. I mean, Relative Chaos, we get that in Relative Chaos, but that's in season 2. But I still didn't really like that. It's just like, oh, well, I guess she's just nothing now, I guess. But then in one of the boys, Lincoln mentions that he's going to go meet up with Ronnie, which I think is a great little mention of that, because, again, it shows that Lincoln and Ronnie are slowly becoming close as they hang out off screen. And, you know, like, he mentions her again in the dream sequence where it's like, oh, I have to go hang out with Ronnie Anne again. They kind of tease him about that. I miss the Shipper sisters, man. I really do. Like, I remember Dance Dance when they're so excited about the idea of Ronnie Anne asking Lacey to the dance, or them and one of the boys trying to, like, you know, get them ready to go see Ronnie Anne. Like, I want the Shipper sisters back, man. Like, it was so great to have them in Pimple Plan with, like, them, you know, like, you know, cheering on Luann and Benny, and then even, like, Lori and Lenny with Sam and Luna and Racy Hearts. But I would love to see that with, like, Ronnie Anne. We're like, one of the sisters, I assume Lori or some of the sisters are, like, so, like, excited about, like going to see Ronnie Anne and be very supportive of that or something. Just give me Shipper sisters again. That's all I want from season 1, yeah. But then again, after one of the boys, she's not mentioned again until season 2. And then season 2, we get the episode Shell Shock when Ronnie Anne finally returns in the show. Like, we were all a little worried that Ronnie Anne was never going to come back again. I was a little worried that Ronnie Anne was never going to come back again. But finally, we get the episode Shell Shock. And Shell Shock now plays a bigger role in the Ronnie relationship than any episode up to this point now. Like, after Horoscope, Shell Shock is just a bigger impact on the relationship than you could ever imagine. I mean, obviously, a long time ago, I've had these headcanons for a long time, but I always knew that Shell Shock was the starting point of Lincoln's developing feelings for Ronnie Anne. But again, after Horoscope, when we get to it, it has a bigger impact on that than ever before. So, of course, in Shell Shock, Lincoln continues to have his season 1 feelings about Ronnie Anne. He's like, oh, I can't be paired up with Ronnie Anne. She's, well, Ronnie Anne, and she's not very caring or loving, you know? Like, he has this, like, viewpoint on her where he still views her as the season 1 version of herself where she's very aggressive and stuff. And you do see her, like, hitting Rusty with the volleyball or hitting Lincoln and Clyde into the lockers, and Clyde falls into the trash can, like, and of course she throws a sloppy Joe in his pants. So, yeah, Ronnie Anne's still a little bad. Like, yeah, you see that she's still very, you know, she's still doing pranks and stuff. Like, she is honestly very bad. When you look back at Shell Shock versus, like, now in the Casagrandes, Ronnie Anne is, like, 2 completely different characters when it comes to the main show and now the spin-off. Because you're like, in the main show, like, Shell Shock, she was, like, she never really smiled. She was very aggressive, upset, and really rude, like, most of the time. And then, like, in the Casagrandes, you see how much her character has grown. It's crazy to me, like, how much she's developed. So, like, when you're watching, like, Shell Shock, you're like, why is she so mad and aggressive and upset, you know? But when you look back at it now, you understand why. Like, she only had her mother and her brother, and even then, Bobby worked, like, so many jobs, and Maria worked double shifts a day, so you kind of understand that Ronnie Anne maybe felt isolated alone from her family, and she had no friends. Like, nobody really wanted to be her friend. I mean, Lincoln was technically her friend, I say in quotations, because he was avoiding her the whole episode because he thought that she was going to break the egg. So really, her one real friend really didn't want to spend time with her because he thought that she was going to break the egg. And then, of course, in the episode where he goes to her house, and he sees how caring she is to her brother and her mother, when Ronnie Anne runs off to give Bobby his uniform, Lincoln looks back at Ronnie Anne and he looks down at Rochelle and says, you know what, Rochelle, I think I had your mom all wrong. That looks back and, like, has a soft smile at her and then says, why don't you stay for the night? That was the moment where Lincoln finally realized that he had Ronnie Anne all wrong. Like, he was treating her terribly. Like, yeah, again, she was treating him bad, but he was also treating her bad because he viewed her as something that she wasn't. Johnson, because the way that she acted in school versus the way she acted at home was two completely different viewpoints. And to see that Lincoln actually could trust Ronnie Anne and see that she does care about her family and would not break the egg was something that he had to see. And he had to see that, like, she's much more than what he had saw of her at school. And that's when he's actually started developing feelings for her, because it was like, oh, wow, she does care about people. And then even in the episode where he goes to apologize to Mrs. Johnson and says, like, you should give Ronnie Anne a second chance because she's really responsible and caring and she deserves it. Like, even though that he was talking about it to Mrs. Johnson, I think he was also talking about himself, where he should give Ronnie Anne a second chance because of how, he was avoiding her the whole time, but now he actually sees that she is very caring and still wants to give her a second chance too. And then, of course, he apologizes to Ronnie Anne by saying, there's only one thing I really care about is putting our family back together. And that was just so sweet that, like, Lincoln finally realized his actual feelings for Ronnie Anne and that he really does want to, like, care about her and wants her around and really does trust her now with the egg and stuff. Like, that was just the perfect way to set up their relationship, like, with Lincoln developing his feelings for Ronnie Anne, was that first he saw her as what she used to be versus what he sees of her now, which is not a monster or a troll or whatever, because that's how he viewed her, but now he sees her as much more than that. And then we get Relative Chaos, which I'm not going to talk much about Relative Chaos when it comes to the Roddykin relationship, because when Relative Chaos was hyped, they gave us so much Roddykin content. They were like, okay guys, we know you ship Roddykin, here's all the Roddykin scenes, and that's all the scenes they get in the episode. I mean, what was great about Relative Chaos, though, was in the beginning where, like, Lincoln and Ronnie Anne were kind of, like, rolling their eyes at Lori and Bobby, being like, Lori and Bobby. But then when, like, Lincoln and Ronnie Anne were like, smell you later, not if I smell you first, it's like, oh, look, they're actually becoming friends. Like, they're really sweet around each other, even they don't realize it. And of course, Lincoln was dragged along by Lori to go see Ronnie and Bobby in the city to stop them from moving. But of course, Lincoln was only in the episode to eat cake for half of the episode. Like, I'm very disappointed that they really did not give Lincoln anything to do in that episode. They're just like, oh, he's there, I guess, because he's the main character of the show. He has a relationship with Ronnie, and I guess, he has to be there, I guess. I mean, we gotta give them the Roddykin hug at the end, which is, like, so iconic. Like, the moment that Ronnie Anne finally hugs Lincoln and he says, you've never hugged me before, so she says, don't get used to that. And you're like, oh my gosh, and you're like thinking of a horoscope, and you're like, look at that character development, like, she said don't get used to it, and then she did in the horoscope, and I'm like, I'll get ahead of myself. But, like, yeah, I love the hug in Relative Chaos, and then, like, Lincoln, of course, giving her the advice and passing on the torch, quote unquote, to break the fourth wall, which she hasn't done at all in the show. It's like, you set that all up, you have Lincoln passing on the torch to her to break the fourth wall, and yet she has not done it at all in the Casagrandes. I don't know why. Like, why would you set that up if you're not going to do it? But then again, Lincoln has not broke the fourth wall in season 4 since Washed Up. He did break the fourth wall in Live with Casa Loud in the City Trickers comic, when he said he's going to see Ronnie Anne with Lori. But in the actual show, he hasn't done it. Like, he actually hasn't done it. Like, I maybe they're getting rid of breaking the fourth wall. I mean, it was his signature thing when he was the main character. But I'm surprised that Ronnie Anne has not done it in the Casagrandes. I mean, maybe they haven't found a way for her to do it, but I don't know. Like, I don't know why they would set that up and have her not do it, but I liked how she did at the end of Relative Chaos, though, where she was like, Lincoln was right, it does help talking to you guys. Like, it's so nice that she actually took his advice. It means that they're starting to trust each other, where it's like Lincoln is trying to help her, because it was like, oh, if you ever need some help, like, you ever feel lonely, just talk to the audience. Like, it's a really sweet moment between the two, and it does develop their friendship in that way, where it's like, Lincoln, even though that he was like, oh, well, I don't really want to see Ronnie Anne in the beginning of the episode, he still cares about her. That's all that matters. Like, again, when you look back at Relative Chaos and you're thinking about, like, City Slickers and again horoscope, you're like, man, like, the moment he was like, I don't want to see Ronnie Anne, to now, like, anytime he wants to see Ronnie Anne is crazy. Like, I know I keep mentioning horoscope, but, like, again, looking back at their relationship and you look at horoscope, you're like, it's like so crazy to compare that, But then, after Ronnie Anne had moved in Relative Chaos, we did get her and back out. Lincoln's friends had thought that Lincoln had missed Ronnie Anne because he was waiting outside her house for a while, so they're like, oh, well, maybe Lincoln misses Ronnie Anne after she moves. So I really love this episode because Lincoln's friends actually care about his feelings, even though that he was like, oh, I don't really miss her, I was just waiting for a package from her. It really showed that his friends were actually just looking out for him, you know, like maybe he did miss Ronnie Anne, which he did obviously in the end, but he was like, oh, no, I don't miss Ronnie Anne, like, like, yeah, he was definitely lying about that, of course, at the end, but it was just really nice that they're like, oh, we're trying to have Lincoln get over Ronnie, and they're trying to make him happy about not missing Ronnie Anne, of course, so even he was like, oh, well, they were just being good friends, like, yeah, that was really nice of them to actually care about his feelings, because like maybe they knew, like, I mean, Rusty obviously knew in Dance, but they probably knew how much Lincoln really did like Ronnie Anne now, so they know that they're like, oh, well, if he misses her so much, let's just, you know, distract him or try to make him feel better, which I think is really good. But then of course at the end of the episode we do get a Ronnie Anne cameo, a video chat with Lincoln, which I think is really great, but then of course he gets the package of the pie and she starts laughing, but then he, you know, was like, oh, Ronnie Anne, but then he's like, well, I guess the guys were right, I really do miss her, and then, like, he makes a soft smile, and he, like, swoons, and I'm like, oh, yes! I remember when Back Out There was announced, like, I was worried about the episode, like, I really was worried about, like, oh, they're gonna introduce a new Lincoln love interest, or they're gonna make him, like, get over Ronnie Anne, or they're gonna write her off the show, or whatever, but then the moment that ending happened, and he just, like, made that look, I'm just like, oh my gosh, not only does he miss her, but he still has feelings for her. It's just like, oh, it's like, gosh, like, see, that ending is still my favorite ending of season 2. Like, it is just perfectly timed, the music stops, everything about the animation, his facial expressions are just so perfectly timed. It is gorgeous. Like, I just absolutely love that moment. It's, like, the greatest moment ever, because you're like, oh my gosh, he actually does have feelings for Ronnie, and even if he won't admit it. But he actually admitted that he does miss her. And then let's get on to season 3. So season 3 actually, like, Ronnie Anne showed up more in season 3 than any other season that she had appeared in. Season 1, she only had 3 episodes. Well, Heavy Metal, but she didn't appear technically, but she was mentioned. But let's just say, for physical appearances, 3 episodes. Season 2, 3 episodes. Season 3, I think 5, right? I think City Slickers, Spies, Last Thanksgiving, Misconnection, and Really Loud Music, where she made a cameo. So that was 5. 5 appearances. I don't think am I missing one? I don't think so. But yeah, she appeared more in this season than any other season before. And I think that's because they were setting up the Casagrandes spinoff, but also establishing the Casagrandes are now characters in the show, which is great. So then her first appearance in season 3 was City Slickers, which was very early on in season 3. I was so hyped for City Slickers because, of course, it was going to focus on Roddykin and Lobby. Because, you know, in season 1 and 2, Lobby has always been the main focus. They're the main ship. They always have all of the attention, and Roddykin just an afterthought, you know. It's always been an afterthought, which was the one complaint I had when it came to season 1, 2, where it's like, yes, Lobby is great and all, but can we at least get some Roddykin? Like, can we at least see their friendship develop or something happen with them? It's like, nope, Lobby has to be the main focus. Again, I'm not complaining. I love Lobby, don't get me wrong, but I would really like to see more from Roddykin. But season 3 was like, you want Roddykin? We'll give you Roddykin. So we had City Slickers, which focus on both pairings, which I think is honestly the greatest thing they ever done, because again they balance both ships. You had the main story, which was Lincoln realizing that Ronnie Anne was changing for the city, lying about her life and kind of like, you know, acting very weird and stuff, and then you had Lori with Bobby trying to adjust to city life because she was so excited about moving to the city, but she felt like she couldn't actually live there. And then I just love the moment in City Slickers because, like, City Slickers is basically a continuation of Relative Chaos. There are so many scenes in City Slickers where you put them side by side. I made this GIF set like 2 years ago? A year ago? Year ago. I made this GIF set a year ago comparing these scenes from Relative Chaos versus City Slickers. They're like beat by beat the same scenes, really. But especially I love the scene where Lori's asking Lincoln, oh, are you excited to go see Ronnie Anne? And he's like, yeah, we're gonna have a blast, and starts imagining, like, you know, hanging out with Ronnie Anne. And then he says, I missed her. And it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, he said it! He said he missed her! It's like, oh my gosh, look at him developing his feelings for you. Yay! It's like, they actually are just continuing to develop his feelings. It's, like, crazy how you see how much he's starting to really, really like her. And then City Slickers, was great because we did get a lot of moments with Lincoln and Ronnie Anne, but mostly to kind of develop the relationship from Ronnie Anne's side, because of course you saw that she was lying about her life in the city and lying to Lincoln and lying to her city friends because she wanted to say she was from the city and was ashamed to be from Royal Woods, which meant that she was ashamed of having a friend like Lincoln. So when they, of course fought, and he actually walked away from her, which I never thought would ever happen. Like, he got upset at her and walked away and was gonna leave. He was gonna leave. That's how mad he was at Ronnie Anne, but it also showed that he cared about her because, he recognized that she was lying, and he was upset at her. It's like, yeah, he was upset at her, but that means he also cares about her. But then Ronnie Anne finally realized that I shouldn't be lying about my life because I'm gonna lose my one friend. Like I've said so many times, that Lincoln was the first friend that Ronnie Anne ever made in her entire life. And City Slickers really showed that how she was upset at herself for having Lincoln leave because she didn't want him to leave because, again, he's the first friend she ever made and she didn't want to lose that friendship. And they also imply that in Horoscope with literally her saying, my friend Lincoln, and if he were to confess his feelings, then would ruin our friendship. It's like she values her friendship with him so much now, and City Slickers really hinted at, and then Horoscope was like just putting it out there where it's like beyond that, where she does view Lincoln as so important to her. But then City Slickers, of course, she did apologize to him by saying that, I just wanted to impress these city kids, but Lincoln said to her, well, if they're really your friends, they like you for who you are, not where you're from. And I still refer to that quote as the perfect way to sum up the Ronnie relationship. Because, like Lincoln, Lincoln learned to like Ronnie Anne as who she is, like he started from the bottom where he didn't like her and practically hated her guts, to now starting to appreciate her and really love spending time with her. So I think that was mostly not only telling that to her about her city friends, but also talking about himself, where he started to like her for who she is. And that's what she needed to learn, was to embrace herself as herself, because if Lincoln can like her, then anybody can like her. And of course her city friends were like, yeah, it's a totally cool of you not being from the city, like it's fine, like we don't really care, we just like hanging out with you. And that's really what I like about that. And when you talk about friended, when I talk about that, Ronnie, and of course, did not lie to Sid about where she was from. She was like, yep, I'm from Royal Woods, I'm not from the city. And I'm like, look, she actually took Lincoln's advice and didn't lie about her life to Sid. She actually embraced where she was from and embraced herself as not being from the city and really just was herself. It was like she actually learned from Lincoln to take that advice and just express herself in the best way possible. And I think that's honestly wonderful character development, that they progressed that from City Slickers to Friended, where she didn't lie to Sid. They could have made it so easy for her to lie to Sid, but they didn't. They developed her and made her character grow and actually took that advice from Lincoln, that she's not ashamed of where she's from. She actually embraced it, and that's okay. It's fine you're not from the city. That's all right. The best thing about it is that you're adjusting to city life, and that's the best thing for Ronnie Anne. And I just love City Slickers too, just because of the interactions between Lincoln and Ronnie Anne. It was so nice to see them together again after season 2, to have this good episode about kind of focusing on the relationship as a main focus for the first time in the show. But of course, when we get down the line, it'll get even better. But I really like City Slickers just to see more of what their relationship was after the move, and seeing that how they're still friends. They still really care about each other, and Lincoln still really cares about her, and developing his feelings for her even more from that is just really great to see. And then we did not get Roddykin interaction in season 3 until Spies Who Love Me, which I was so excited for. Like, the moment that I saw the title card for Spies Who Love Me, I saw Lincoln was on the phone with Ronnie Anne, I was so excited. Like, I couldn't believe this was actually happening. And then we had the episode where Lincoln made a bunch of little cameos in the episode, just talking to Ronnie Anne on the phone, and that's really all I needed to make me smile. Like, I just adored that. Like, the opening where they're talking to each other on the phone, and Lincoln says, "Oh, hey, Ronnie Anne, guess where I am?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know, but the sign says Flips," and he turns around and is like, "Oh, right." It's just so freaking precious. Like, he's just playing a little guessing game with her, and she's like, oh, well, it's like, oh, that's so cute. They just talk to each other, and, like, on the phone, it's really precious. And then, like, Lincoln, like, calling her again, checking in on her, where he's like, oh, how are the murals? And she's like, oh, did you try the flip yet? He's like, oh, no. It's just really, really cute. It's, like, again, showing, even though that they're a long-distance friendship, their friendship is still so strong. Like, it's just really great. Because I know a lot of people have mentioned before, like, this long distance could, like, really affect their relationship in the worst way possible. But honestly, this long distance has really brought them closer than ever before. It's just so great that they have actually continued to have this friendship between each other, because they still really enjoy being around each other's company, even if it's like they have to talk to each other over the phone. It's just really nice. It's a wonderful, like, positive way of showing long distance friendships. I mean, we all have internet friends that we probably will barely ever see in real life, so to know that, like, these two, even though they're 3 hours away from each other, still call each other to check in on each other and talk to each other is the sweetest thing ever. It's so adorable. Like, I absolutely just love their friendship so much, and to see how much their friendship has grown with just those little moments with them, even if it's like the smallest thing with these two, it just shows how much their relationship has grown so much in the show. Just to know that, like, oh, they just call each other from time to time and check in on each other, even if they don't realize it. They're turning into Lobby. Like, they're really turning to Lori and Bobby, where they're like, oh, call each other, let's hang out, let's talk. It's so cute. I absolutely adore it. Like, I remember when the episode came out, I was so happy I cried. I was like, oh my god, it's so great to see my babies again on screen together. I mean, even though that, like, Lincoln and Ronnie and they're in different places, but they're still talking on the phone, it's just the sweetest thing. Like, they didn't have to do that for the first Ronnie and that Focus episode, but the fact that they did just sprinkle in that little Ronnie kin to show that they're really good friends still, and they still talk to each other from time to time. It's the sweetest thing ever. I absolutely love that about Spies. I mean, I love Spies overall, but it's because it was a great episode for Ronnie and for her. It was a great episode just for the first Ronnie Anne Focus episode in the show, and the show that, like, in Spies, that Ronnie Anne really didn't really care about the Casagrandes and how affectionate they were to her, and she was like, oh, I could just do this by myself. But in the end of the episode, she's learning to appreciate her family just looking out for her, because, she had Bobby and Maria, she really did care about them, but of course, being isolated and alone pretty much her entire life, practically, she didn't really have that much affection. Now that the Casagrandes are always around, like, they're always constantly on her tail about, we're just here for you, please don't push us away, Ron, and stop acting like this, like, just know we're here for you. And she's like, it's fine, just give me a little space, like, I understand you guys care for me, but please just back off a little bit, like, it's just great to see from that point, from Spies to, again, the Casagrandes, where she's finally learning to embrace her family love. I think it's honestly just great character growth on her end, again, because it's like, you understand that, like, yes, Ronnie Anne does care about her loved ones, but she really just tried to push away her family, especially Roads of Chaos, where even though she does care about her family, she didn't want to move, and she was like, oh no, I'm not moving away, I don't really care about living with the Casagrandes, I don't want this, I want to stay, but now she's like, oh, okay, guys, I understand now, you guys care about me, that's fine, I just want to, like, have some space, but I understand now that you guys are just looking out for me. Like, it's a really good character growth on her end for her to start appreciating her family love, which can also be transitioned to friends as well. And then finally, the last Ronnie Kim moment in season 3 was in Loudest Thanksgiving. I was so hyped for Loudest Thanksgiving because, of course, having my two favorite families finally come together and meet for the first time ever in the show was going to be the most amazing thing ever. And Last Thanksgiving is still my favorite episode of season 3, or maybe even the entire show right now overall, but I still love this episode so much. But man, the moment that Lincoln and Ronnie Anne see each other at the door, like Lori and Bobby when they see each other at the door, they're like, oh, boo boo bear, oh babe, and they hug. And then the moment that Lincoln and Ronnie Anne say punk loser, I literally screamed so loud, I almost had a heart attack. Like, we were watching this episode live, I was watching watching this episode live with my friend Nat and Mitch, so we watched this live together, and like the moment that Lincoln and Ronnie saw each other at the door and said "Pumpkin Loser," I screamed so loud, I feel like everybody in my apartment building just heard me. Like, I screamed so loud. I was so happy, I literally broke down and cried. Like, it was just the greatest thing ever. Like, Punk Loser is such an iconic moment now. Like, I love that scene so much. And the fact that Darren, if you're out there, because I remember posting about this on Twitter, I made this, there was this meme going out here where it's like, only your fandom will understand, and I said Punk Loser, and then Darren commented saying, I'm the one that added that into the script, and I'm like, Darren, you added that into the script? You gave us the iconic line, Punk Loser. Every time I watch the Punk Loser scene, I'm just gonna look up and be like, thank you, Darren. Like, I'm gonna thank him every single day, knowing that he's the one that put Punk Loser, because I literally just love that scene so much. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, well, what was originally in that scene, though? Like, did, like, Lincoln and Ronnie not see each other? Did they just kind of, like, look at each other, the passing? And it's like, Darren was like, okay, guys, we need to have Lincoln and Ronnie at least acknowledge each other. Like, we have to have this happen. I mean, like, they just can't just look at each other. Like, we need this moment to happen because, you know, how many fans really want to see Lincoln and Ronnie together. So he's like, just write in Punk Loser. It's like, there you go. It's like, oh my gosh, Darren, thank you so much for Punk Loser. Thank you for blessing us with that iconic line, because we all love it. I love it so much. Like, just again, like I said before, the tiniest scene, even the tiniest little scene, like the tiniest 5-second scene of them going Pumpkin Loser, and Lincoln, like, when Ronnie hits him and then Lincoln hits her back, it's like, you see how much their relationship has developed just from a 5-second scene. Like, it's like, those 5 seconds, it's like, look at their relationship. Look how much it's developed. Like, they're literally, like, flirting with each other. It's, like, crazy. It's like, oh, man, they hate each other season 1. Now in season 3, look at them flirting with each other in the background. Like, yeah, it's like, Lincoln puts his arm around her where they're walking into the house. I'm like, are they dating? It's like somebody had to approve that animation. It's like it's a blink and you miss it moment, but it's like he wraps his arm around her and you're like, somebody approved of that. Somebody said, hey guys, let's have Lincoln wrap his arm around Ronnie, and we won't, like, actually show it, but, like, when you look at it and you, like, play the slow motion, you see it and you're like, somebody approved of this, and I adore it. Like, it's so great. Like, the little Ronnie Kim moments in Last Thanksgiving were great. Like, just, like, at flips are standing next to each other, like, you see all the laughs and Casagrandes kind of, like, mixed in together, but Lincoln and Ronnie are, like, the only ones, like, standing next to each other right in the middle. Like, the real pairing is, like, right next to each other. Then, of course, at the end, they're kind of, like, you know, talking to each other a bit, and they're still standing next to each other, like, sharing flippies. It's like, they were, and then, of course, like, Lori and Bobby and Lincoln and Ronnie and wrapping their arms around each other. It's like Last Thanksgiving was just, like, the perfect fan service episode. Like, they knew what they were doing when it came to Lincoln and Ronnie, and they were like, we got you guys, we're giving you the ship teasing. Like, it's just absolutely perfect. Like, you know, it's like, it's like, again, developing their friendship, and you see that they're very close, which I was kind of upset that Ronnie Anne did not interact with any of the Loud sisters in that episode, like, but I still feel like, I made this analogy a very long time ago, that Ronnie Anne isn't really used to talking to other people that she doesn't really know yet. I mean, with the Casagrandes, of course, she knows, like, everybody in the apartment building now, and knows Sid and all these people, so she's just so she's more friendly now. But I feel like back then, during that time, she wasn't really used to, like, talking to strangers or people she didn't really know that well. So I think she was more comfortable just hanging around Lincoln because she knew him. Like, I mean, with her family, she knew her family, but, like, anybody else, she wasn't really, like, I mean, she knows Lori, I guess she knows Luann, but it's like, Lincoln's her friend, so of course she wants to hang around him, and have those two little flirt in the back. Like, I'm sorry, like, those two were flirting in the back, I'm sorry, like, just the looks they give each other, and they're, like, standing next to each other and stuff, it's like, they were flirting, that's for sure. Like, it's just perfect, absolutely perfect. And then we didn't get a Ronnie Anne season 3, and we did get a Ronnie Anne cameo for live music, which was honestly great, because, you know, like, with really loud music, I didn't think they were gonna even like remember the Casagrandes, but then all of a sudden you have that song, and then at the end you see the Casagrandes dance, and you're like, oh my gosh! Like, not only did they remember Bobby, but they remembered Ronnie Anne. That was so. She made a cameo in Missed Connection, which was great for the 5 seconds she got an appearance in that, which was fine. But I glossed over that because Lincoln was not in it. I mean, he was in really loud music, but like it was a little episode. But I was still happy for that cameo. But I was also happy for the cameo in Missed Connection because it was like that was the first episode that Ronnie Anne appeared in where Lincoln was not in the episode, so that was kind of interesting that she kind of appeared for like a few minutes in that, so yeah. And then let's move on to season 4. So season 4 is very early on, so we don't actually know there's going to be any Ronnie kid in the main show, but there was in Friended, because Friended was the beginning of the Casagrande arc, which actually kicked off in season 4 and then into the Casagrandes. We did get a little 5-second cameo from Lincoln in Friended where Ronnie was talking to him on the phone, which again, that was so sweet. That was so great to see, because, again, they're showing how much the Lincoln and Ronnie and friendship is developing still, and how he calls to check in on her from time to time. Like, it's super duper sweet, where she's like, he's like, oh, how's steady life? And she's like, oh, great. Funny thing, I thought I saw you the other day. It was just an old guy with white hair. And he's like, oh, I get that a lot. Like, it's just, oh, it's so precious. It's really precious. But it also makes you think, so was that kind of a little indication that Ronnie and Mrs. Lincoln, even though she is not really admitting it? Because, like, if you're seeing old people with white hair and thinking it's Lincoln, like, I would imagine, like, maybe she was hanging out with her city friends before she met Sid, and she was, like, walking around with them, all of a sudden she spot, like, an old guy, was like, Lincoln! And he turned around and was like, oh, you're not Lincoln. And then, like, her city friends are like, oh, Ronnie, and this is, like, the 5th time this week. Just admit you miss Lincoln. What? No, I don't miss Lincoln. It was just an accident, it doesn't mean anything. Like, she was in total denial. It's like, but it is so cute. It was just adorable, because again, it's like developing their friendship because they still talk to each other on the phone. I think it's great. But it also does connect to Sid, where of course Sid is introduced and friended, and how Ronnie Anne was able to make friends with Sid so fast. And I remember a lot of people saying this, how, why was Sid so important to Ronnie Anne and friended? Like, why is she so important to her if she has other friends already with her city friends, which are also established in the spinoff now? But when Sid was introduced, we didn't know the city friends were going to be established in the Casagrandes. But the reason that Sid now is so important to Ronnie Anne is because, like Lincoln, she values her friendship with Sid. And Sid was the first friend that Ronnie Anne made after becoming friends with Lincoln. She saw an opportunity to have a friend like Sid, because she made friends with her super fast. It's like, whoa, like, I actually made a friend on my own without, like, anybody's help. Like, because of course, she became his friend, versus Ronnie Anne becoming Sid's friend and seeing how important Sid was. And she was like, oh, well, like, I thought if Sid would move in here, I thought we'd be friends, maybe even best friends. Like, she saw it as, now that I had a very good relationship with Lincoln and how I have a really healthy friendship with him now, to see that Sid finally came into my life and was a really good person, and I love spending time with her. I want to be her friend now. I want her to be my friend. I want her to be around so we can become really good friends. That way I can establish a good friendship like I have with Lincoln. I think that's really why I see that now, because even I was kind of like, well, why does Sid matter to Ronnie Anne this much? Because again, she has city friends and she has Lincoln, but again, she views Lincoln and Sid as both of her best friends, according to Horoscope now, that she views both of them as very important people in her life. So after she became friends with Lincoln, so she saw an opportunity with Sid to become her friend, because like now that she can show that she's grown as a person, she can have healthy friendships with other people and become a good friend, like Lincoln became a good friend to her. Lincoln helped her out with opening up her feelings and expressing herself for who she is and being such a great friend to her, that she's started to become a good friend to Sid. Like, she's really started to become more of a good person to Sid, because we've seen a lot of Sid and Ronnie Anne's relationship in the Casagrandes, especially with Two Clubs. You see how supportive Ronnie Anne is to Sid and how she's really trying to be such a good friend to her, because again, I think it's because of the influence from Lincoln being such a good friend to her. So she just wants to be a good friend to other people. So that's why I think Sid was so important to her, and of course it's important now, because now that she has developed through being Lincoln's friend, she wants to be a good person to other people like Sid. And now let's talk about the horoscope, the huge event, the big Ronniekin episode, the Ronniekin episode. I think this is the first Ronniekin episode we've ever had since since Shell Shock in season 2. So this is the Ronniekin episode. Like, this is the episode we've been waiting for a long time. The one I've been waiting for a long time. And again, this episode really impacts the relationship, like I mentioned before, in such a way that you never thought would. And then you look back at the episodes, you're like, oh my gosh, like, Horoscope really did change their relationship for the better, didn't it? Like, it really just makes you think for a second. It's crazy, especially with Shell Shock. But let's get to some of the key points I want to talk about with discussing the horoscope. So like I mentioned before, her friend did, Ronnie Anne saying that Lincoln is her friend now. So, for the longest time, I've wanted Lincoln and Ronnie Anne to say that they are friends in the show. Of course, we can all say that they're friends. Like, we can assume that, because obviously they've hung out a lot in the shows, and, you know, like, mentioned that they're hanging out and stuff, but they never really called each other friends, you know? Like, I think the one time Lincoln ever said my friend Ronnie Anne was in one of the, like, advertisements for Relative Chaos, but, like, in the actual show, no. They never really call each other friends. Like in City Slickers, when Lincoln refers to her friends, he's talking about her city friends, not him. So they never really talked about being friends. Because like with Lincoln, he always says, oh, my friend Clyde, or my best friend Clyde, or my buddy, or whatever he calls Clyde, you know. Whereas Ronnie Anne was always, again, an afterthought. She was never really like that important to him or even the show, because they really didn't want to make the Ronnie relationship that important. But to know that the horoscope appeared in the Casagrandes, where Ronnie Anne is now a focus, we actually have focus on her feelings about Lincoln. And the moment that she says to Sid, oh, my friend Lincoln's here and I'm pretty sure he's about to tell me he loves me. If Lincoln tells me he likes me, it'll be so awkward. It will ruin everything. Like, to know that Ronnie Anne values her friendship with Lincoln so much, to the point where she's afraid that if they both confess their feelings, something might happen to her friendship, is so important to me now. Like, to know that they established that, where they actually have finally shown that Ronnie Anne has said that Lincoln is her friend, and she values him so much, and sees him as not only sees him as just as important to her life as Sid, is honestly amazing. Because like when Sid and Lincoln meet, she says, my two best buds have finally met. It's like, they're both her best friends. She sees them both as her best friends. And I've had these headcanons for a long time that, again, Lincoln was the first friend that Ronnie had ever made in her entire life. Like, he was the first person to open up to her and accept her for who she is and actually become her friend. And to know that she values him now, and to see that and hear that, is just amazing to me. Like, I never thought that they would actually even say that in the shows, you know? Like, I have these headcanons for the longest time being like, yes, Ronnie Anne thinks that Lincoln's so important to her, but we've never seen that in the show. Whereas Casagrandes were like, yeah, like, she really thinks that Lincoln is very important to her. And to know that if they were to screw something up with them confessing their feelings, it could mess up their friendship. Like with City Slickers, again, she messed up and he walked away and he was going to leave and she was going to lose him. She has this fear of losing Lincoln because of how important he is to her life. And same thing goes with Friended, because like with Sid, you know, she was afraid that if Sid didn't move into the apartment building, she wouldn't have Sid as her friend, and she probably would have never made friends with Sid if she would have like gone somewhere else. So the same thing applies to Lincoln, like that moment where she said that it could ruin their friendship. She doesn't want to lose Lincoln because of how important he is to her life, and I just think that's so wonderful that she sees him as somebody who's very important to her. You know, like he is her best friend now. It's really, really great because again, Sid is her best friend. Obviously, she is her established best friend, the Casagrandes, but Lincoln's also her best friend too, and she sees him as just important as Sid, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. Like, I'm just so glad that this episode gave us a different perspective, not from Lincoln, but from Ronnie Anne, because finally seeing her feelings on Lincoln is something I've wanted from the show since day one, because we kind of, like, really assumed that Ronnie Anne did have a crush on Lincoln. But I think her crush on him, quote unquote, in Heavy Metal and Save the Date and Season 1 or in that way, was more of like a little kitty crush, where it's like, I don't really know him, but he's kind of cute, I guess. Like, she was probably attracted to him. Like, she thought that he was really cute, but then of course she was like, oh, I'm never gonna become friends with this guy, you know, because I'm teasing him, I'm pranking him, I'm trying to get his attention, but he probably just hates my guts, you know, like, I've never become friends with him. But now they're best friends, and I think now that's very important to her, because she worked so hard to become friends with him because, again, she probably never thought that she was going to become friends with Lincoln because, again, she was teasing him for the longest time. But then Lincoln opened up to her and wanted to become her friend. And now that they've become friends, she's so thankful for Lincoln coming into her life because he was the one that's really saw more in her than everybody else, and he was there for her in Relative Chaos, even though I complain about Relative Chaos. He did give her advice and told her that, when you're feeling lonely, just talk to the audience, and he's always checking on her, and again, really does care about her. And even in the comics, like in Live Life Loud, in that comic where she's like following Carlitos around, she calls Lincoln for baby advice. It really shows that she really does trust him now. It's so wonderful that, again, she trusts him with anything now. And again, that's why she thinks of him as somebody who's important to her, because he is, again, one of her best friends. And to know that, she has developed this relationship with him throughout the seasons is special to her. And she doesn't want to lose that because she's worked so hard to become his friend, It took her a long time to actually become a good person and a good friend to Lincoln, and now that she's a good friend to Sid as well. She doesn't want to lose all of that, stuff that she's worked hard for. I mean, again, we can say, obviously I believe that Ronnie Anne does have feelings for Lincoln. Like, she really does have feelings for she's always had feelings for him since day one, obviously. But, like, the moment where Ronnie Anne talks to Lincoln about how, like, Lincoln says, my friend really likes this girl, but they've been buds for a while, and it's a long-distance thing, and she's like, oh, well, maybe he should just stuff these feelings deep down inside and not make things weird. When she talks about that, she is definitely talking about herself. Like, she's definitely saying that about her versus, like, giving Rusty advice. Like, I think that Ronnie Anne has been bottling up her feelings for Lincoln for the longest time because of that fear of losing Lincoln if she and him were to confess their feelings and become a couple officially. Because I know a lot of people have asked me, why hasn't Ronnie Anne become Endgame now? Like, they should have became Endgame a long time ago. Because if they would became Endgame now, there would be no development whatsoever. You're like, yeah, Lobby is an established couple, I know that, but, like, we had misconnection, and, that was a good episode because, of course, they made the move, and that's what kind of broke the relationship and the way to explore that. And Last Thanksgiving, too, in a way, but it was more like misconnection already did that, But I think, of course, with Lobby, we really haven't had a episode that really focuses on the relationship in, like, a way where it's, like, interesting, besides misconnection. I love Lobby, don't get me wrong, but, whereas if Ronnie Anne would have became Endgame, I don't think we would have seen their relationship, like, develop much at all, really, like, maybe it would have, but I don't think their relationship would be as interesting or as engaging as it is right now, that they're not an official couple, that you're seeing that slow progression, and of course, Ronnie Anne bottling up her emotions for Lincoln, because obviously, again, with this episode Horoscope, Lincoln, like, he really, really likes Ronnie Anne. Like, you could tell that he definitely has a crush on Ronnie Anne, because all the vibes he gives her in this episode, of course, implies that he really, really likes Ronnie Anne. Because, like, the moment that he says to her, like, oh, I've missed this, you, me, cat videos, it's like, oh, like, it's such a soft sigh. It's just like, and he looks at her like that, it's just like, oh my god, he really likes her, oh my gosh. And, like, when he gives her the, the flippy, like, it's her favorite flavor of grape, it's like, he just likes her so much, oh my gosh. It's like, thinking about his character development makes me cry. It's like, he loves her so much. It's like, Ronnie Anne, why don't you see that you like him too? Why? But that's just the greatest thing about slow burn relationships, is because you get so invested in their relationship development, because you're like, one person definitely likes said person, but other said person hasn't realized it yet. It's like Miraculous Ladybug with Adrian and Marinette. Shout out to Nat if you're out there. With Marinette really liking Adrian, but Adrian hasn't realized his feelings for Marinette yet, because obviously he likes Ladybug. Then Ladybug not realizing she likes Cat Noir because she likes Adrian, but it's like, that real true slow burn with that. We're same thing with Ronnie Anne, where it's like, you're so invested in a relationship because you're like, you want them to be together. We all want them to be together. Ronnie Anne's gonna be Endgame, I just know it. But it's like, it's great to see that growth, because you need to see that the feelings are mutual. Because again, obviously, we all know that Lincoln likes Ronnie and he really likes her. It's so true. Like, don't question it. He has a crush on her. Whereas Ronnie Anne is like, stop bottling your emotions and tell him how you feel, you know? Like, yeah, it's that, and again, it's that fear. It's that fear of losing Lincoln and their friendship because, again, she's worked so hard to become such a good friend to him. It's like, if we were to date now, it's like, if we were to fight, if we were to screw this up, if she were to say something and they break their relationship, that would be awful. And of course they're kids, you know, obviously they're 11 years old. They don't know what it's like to be in a relationship yet. I think it's more like she's seen Bobby and Lori, and it's kind of like, I don't want us to become that, you know? It's like, I don't want us to become lovey-dovey and, like, call each other every 5 seconds, you know? I want us to take things slow. Like, again, I know Ronnie Anne, but I know for a fact that Ronnie Anne, deep down, really wants to be with Lincoln. Like, she does really have a lot of feelings for him. But again, it's that fear. It's that fear of losing him if she were to confess her feelings for him. Or even say that she doesn't feel that way about him and she hurts him, she's gonna lose him. Like, you know, if they were to confess their feelings and she was like, I don't feel that way right now, you know, she doesn't want to lose Lincoln as a friend. Like, she's afraid that if she does say that she doesn't like him that way, he might go away forever, and she doesn't want that because she really does love Lincoln. She's just not ready to confess those real feelings yet at the moment. And then I want to talk about how, like, Sid knows about Lincoln. I was so happy to know that Ronnie Anne has told Sid about Lincoln. I was a little upset that we did not get Sid, Roddy, Kid Shipper, and Horoscope, sadly, because I was kind of hoping for that. But most of us have agreed the reason that Sid was not a Roddy, Kid Shipper was, of course, she understood Ronnie Anne's feelings about not feeling that way about Lincoln at the moment, so she was just trying to look out for her best friend, which was fine. But it was really nice to see Lincoln and Sid meet for, like, the little moment they got to meet each other, of course. But then, of course, we got the Rain comic, Live with Castle, where we finally got the ultimate OT3 goodness. Like, so good. I absolutely love that comic so much. So adorable to see that, like, Ronnie and Lincoln and Sid have become this really great friendship. Like, it's so awesome to me that, like, Sid is definitely okay with Ronnie and having other friends, because I was a little worried about this idea of when Sid was first introduced. I was like, well, how is she going to react to Lincoln, knowing that Ronnie Anne has another best friend somewhere out there, or even Ronnie Anne views Lincoln as her best friend, because I didn't know at the time that she was going to view him as that way, but now that she does, absolutely wonderful thing. But, you know, like, obviously Sid knows about Samir and her city friends, which I was upset about because we got an off-screen introduction where she was like, oh yeah, Samir, right, I guess. Like, she was just kind of like, oh, cool, when Ronnie was like, let's go see Samir. She was like, okay. It's like, wait, do you know Samir? Or do you just know that Ronnie has a bunch of friends now? Whereas with Lincoln, it's kind of an off-screen introduction in a way, but Ronnie Anne, when she talked about Lincoln, where she was like, oh, my friend Lincoln's here, and then Sid was like, I thought you guys were just buds. It's like, oh, Sid knows about Lincoln? Oh, okay. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't think they were going to do that. All right. And then, like, Sid is like, oh, I've heard a lot about you, Lincoln. I can see why Ronnie loves being your friend and nothing more. But it's like, oh my gosh, like, how much has Ronnie Anne told Sid about Lincoln? Like, did she talk about how they first met? Did she talk about shell shock? Because she did mention about the egg baby, so maybe she did tell her about the time they took care of Rochelle, which I'm going to talk about in a few. But, like, how much has she told Sid about Lincoln? Like, has she talked about him constantly to her? Like, I remember thinking about this scene in my head where it was like, you know, after Sid met Nikki, Casey, and Samir, Ronnie Anne was like, okay, well, Sid's okay with me having city friends. I guess it's time to finally tell Sid about Lincoln. So, like, she's like, oh, well, you know, you're my best friend here in the city, but I also have another best friend back in Royal Woods. His name is Lincoln Loud. And she starts talking about Lincoln. And I feel like Sid kind of quote-unquote shipped them, where she was like, oh my gosh, is that your boyfriend? And she's like, oh, no. And there's no romantic feelings between us whatsoever. There's nothing going on between us in that way. And she's like, okay, fine, you know, that's cool. But I think it was just really awesome to know that Sid is just totally okay with Ronnie and having another best friend, because again, Sid is her best friend, her established best friend, like Clyde is Lincoln's best friend, of course, in the main show. But to know that Sid is just, like, totally cool with Lincoln being around and Ronnie and, like, you know, hanging out with him and stuff, because of course in Rain where she was like, oh hey Lincoln, he's like, oh hey Sid, it's like, oh look how chill they are. It's like, that's just cool that they just, like, or just chill with each other. That's awesome. It's like, it's really cool to see, like, Ronnie Anne's two friends actually getting along and just kind of knowing each other and just like, hey. It's like, hey, Ronnie Anne's boyfriend, hey, Ronnie Anne's girlfriend, what's up? I think that's just so cool. They're all like buddies now. I think that's awesome, or in a happy poly relationship, because I do absolutely support the poly relationship between Ronnie and Sid and Lincoln if you're for that. But if you're not, it's like three buddies chilling out. It's so cool. Like, I just love how, like, Sid's just accepting of Lincoln being around because, she knows how important Lincoln is to Ronnie Anne. So I think that's just really awesome that she was like, yeah, you have another best friend. That's cool, I guess, I mean, did Lincoln know about Sid? I guess he knew about her. I mean, there was some friended promos where Ronnie Anne did talk about Sid to Lincoln, but, I guess he already knew that she had a best friend in the city, and he was like, that's cool too. Like, I just think it's awesome that they're all, like, they're all buddies now. Like, I really hope we do get an episode again with the three just, like, hanging out and doing something together in the city. I don't know. Because, I do want to see that OT3 goodness. But I just think it's great that Sid has accepted Lincoln as Ronnie Anne's other best friend or potential boyfriend. So I think that's just really, really neat. And then let's talk about the reference to shell shock in the horoscope. So Lincoln actually brings Rochelle to the city, which we were all thinking, like, why did he bring Rochelle to the city for a visit with Ronnie Anne? Like, that's just crazy. Like, he had that prepared, like, when he was coming to visit her, and it's like, oh, I missed this. You meet cat videos, but I'm not the only one. Remember Rochelle from Mrs. Johnson's classes? She's like, whoa, you kept that weird egg baby we had to take care of? It's like, yeah, like, how old is that egg? We don't know the timeline between shell shock and when she moved, so we're not really clear on what kind of timeline that is. So we don't know if Rochelle is like fake egg or not. And also, I did watch Shell Shock to see if that face on Rochelle is like the same one in Shell Shock, and it actually is the same face at the end of the episode when Lincoln gives her Toby Rochelle II. It is the same face. But I am curious as to why Lincoln calls it Rochelle despite him saying it would be Toby Rochelle II, because Toby is the name that Ronnie Anne wanted to give to the egg, and then Lincoln wanted to call it Rochelle. But I guess it's just easier to refer to it as Rochelle because that's the name that they really went with. But it was just kind of interesting to me that they actually did reference Shell Shock and had kept the baby egg, and Lincoln was like, she's getting all eggs this year. I guess we're pretty good parents, like it's just like that perfect ship tease, And also the fact that Lincoln brought a little carrier to keep the egg in, like, he had that all prepared just for a visit with Ronnie Anne. Like, that's just crazy to me that he had that prepared. But I think the reason that Lincoln kept Rochelle is because it is the reminder of when he developed his feelings for Ronnie Anne, of course. Because like I mentioned with Shell Shock, when he finally saw that Ronnie Anne was much more than what he saw of her in school, he looks down at Rochelle and says, you know what, Rochelle, I think I had your mother all wrong, and smiles at her. And that's like the moment when, like, in Horoscope, when he's talking about them being good parents, he's like, shh, she might hear you, and then he looks down and smiles at Rochelle. It was just like, that was his little reminder of this is like one of the things that actually reminds me of Ronnie Anne when I'm not visiting her, and it just shows that, like, he still cares about Ronnie, and he still has a lot of feelings for her, because, like, yeah, it's silly for Lincoln to keep an egg after the project, but it's like, it's because it's a reminder of Ronnie Anne, because he still really loves her. I think it's just kind of adorable, actually. It's like, oh, that's so cute. That's like a little reminder of Ronnie Anne when he's not seeing her. It reminds him of when he actually started developing feelings for her. I think that's just super duper adorable. But again, like, he kept it a little carrier. It's like, he had this all prepared. I think it's crazy, Like, again, it's crazy to me that, like, I think Lincoln has a lot of feelings for Ronnie Anne, obviously. And I want to talk about this because I had a friend of mine mention this on Discord with Lincoln and romantic feelings, because with Lincoln, he has been shown to have romantic interest in the show, where his first crush was Christina, and then you had Ronnie Anne. I mean, Ronnie Anne was first in heavy metal, but, like, his established crush was Christina first, and then you have Ronnie Anne, and then you have Paige in Ellis for Love, and then you have Stella, which, again, you can argue the Stella thing because Stella has stuck around, and I do ship Stellakin, so I can see Lincoln having a crush on Stella, but for now, let's just say, let's just stick with Ronnie Anne. But I can agree on Lincoln having a crush on Stella, but I digress. With Christina, of course, she never came back. She made one cameo for Bros About to Rock, and that was really it. And then Paige never came back in L is for Love. Whereas Ronnie Anne has stuck around because she of course became the true main love interest for Lincoln, where she has a character and has appeared in a bunch of episodes with him. And so with Lincoln developing feelings for Ronnie Anne and viewing a romantic relationship in her, I can see that because of course he has spent more time with her and really likes spending time with her and hanging out with her. But I think that Lincoln, if he were to confess his feelings to Ronnie Anne and she was like, oh, well, I'm not ready yet, or I don't feel that way right now about you. Like, it's like, I like you, Lincoln, but I'm just not ready to admit that, or I'm just scared to admit that and stuff. I think Lincoln would understand. He would just be like, hey, it's okay. Like, I wanted to tell you the truth. It's like, I don't think Lincoln really cares about them being in a romantic relationship. Even if he would have romantic feelings for her, I think it's like, I don't really care what we are. I just love spending time with you. That's the reason that he loves her so much, because he likes spending time with her. So if he were to say that he does like her and she's like, I don't feel that way about you, I think it's more like, that doesn't really matter. It's like, all that matters is that we're friends. Like, he just loves spending time with her. I think that's the greatest thing ever to that. Yes, I can see, like, because again, like, in Heavy Metal, he was very excited at the idea of a girl liking him, like, with Stella too. He has this idea of a girl liking him versus actually liking a girl, Like, I think it's more like, if he were to hear that a girl likes him, he's all for it. Because that's how boys are. Because, like, oh, well, I mean, with girls too, obviously. But it's like, with boys where it's like, oh, a girl likes me? Oh, yes, I like them too. It's like, no. Lincoln has to actually develop feelings for someone before he can say that he does like someone that way. So I think because he's developed so many feelings for Ronnie Anne, I think now he actually does have true feelings for her versus like, oh, she does like me, that means I like her. No. I want it to be where they both do like each other and the feelings are mutual, but it's like, if Ronnie Anne does confess her feelings to Lincoln, he will be happy he'll be excited, but I want it to be where he's not rushing her into a relationship. I don't want them to rush it. It's more like, I'm really happy that we confessed our feelings to each other, but nothing really needs to change. Like, we don't need to become a couple right away. Like, that's how I want the Ronnie confession to go. Is that when they finally do realize their feelings for each other, maybe they'll kiss. I don't know. But I did want it to be where they're like, the feelings are mutual, but it's like, let's not rush things, like, because obviously to me, Ronnie I don't think they'll become officially endgame on screen. I think it'll be implied in, like, the series finale. But if they were to kind of become endgame on screen, like, kiss, obviously, like, a save the date, like, it's where it's the official kiss, where it's like, they finally realize they both like each other, that'll be fantastic, and I will cry every single day knowing that happened. But the moment they do confess to each other, I think it's more like they know that, like, nothing will change. Like, nothing will change about their relationship, or they want to say that nothing will change. They don't want to become a Lori and Bobby, They want to keep their relationship as, very, like, the way it should be. Like, obviously. Like, that's why I feel like Ronnie Anne is afraid of confessing her feelings to Lincoln, because she feels like if she were to confess her feelings and they become a couple, things will change. But obviously, I know in the end that they'll realize that nothing will change about the relationship, and in that way. I mean, obviously they can develop the relationship if it becomes romantic, but I still want it to be where it's like, they realize that nothing will change about the relationship. Nothing will ruin it. They will work at it together. I think that'll be wonderful if that happens, if we do get a Ronnie confession. But for now, it's like, I want the feelings to be mutual, because that's why I know for a fact with Horoscope, we are definitely getting a Ronnie Anne developing her feelings for Lincoln arc. I definitely see that. Especially, like, where she was like, at the end of the episode, she was like, what's that look, Abuela? Ernesto was clearly wrong. I didn't find love. Like, she, like, her voice crashed where she was like, I didn't find love. It's like, yeah, Ronnie Anne. We all know. Like, especially, or even, like, where she was like, listen, Abuela, we're just friends. And I'm like, when you say you're just friends, that means you two are gonna end up together. Like, I'm sorry, Ronnie Anne, you just jinxed yourself, as we said in the podcast. It's like, you just set yourself up for you two to end up together when you said that. So yeah, so I think it's definitely hinting at an arc of Ronnie Anne developing her feelings for Lincoln. That's what I really want to see down the line, is her side. And Lincoln's had 3 seasons and a spin-off to develop his feelings for Ronnie Anne, so we need to see more from her side. We definitely need to see more of that, and that's definitely what Horoscope was going for. And then let's talk about all the ship teasing in this episode, because this episode is ship teasing episode. Like, this was the perfect fan service episode. There's just so much ship teasing in this episode, but I want to talk about some main important parts of this episode. The greatest moment in this episode is when Lincoln comes out in his suit and says, "How do I look?" And then Ronnie Anne sees him and he winks at her and she goes, "Oh wow." It's like, oh, that scene is just perfection. Like, I've watched that scene so many times, I absolutely love it. But like, the moment that she goes, "Oh wow," and then like kind of shakes her head, when she says that, she has her hand to her heart to kind of like stop herself from admitting that. But like, for the 5 seconds she said, "Oh wow," it's like, oh, her real feelings just came out. Oh, why? It's like, we had it, we almost had it, and then she like shakes out like, oh, darn it. It's like, it was almost there. Come on, Ryan, you almost made it. And then when you see that scene of her going, "Oh wow," and then you look at the background of the cupids in the background of the wall, the one cupid is actually pointed towards her with the bow and arrow. Because I remember watching that scene, and then, like, somebody pointed out to me, was like, "Look at the cupid in the background." I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I watched the scene before, but what do you mean? So when she said that, had her hand to her heart, the cupid is pointed, the arrow is pointed to her when she has her hand to her heart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's subtle detail. It's like, oh, whoa, the animators know what they're doing. It's like, that can't just be a coincidence. It's literally pointed to her when she sees Lincoln in the suit and winks at her, and she goes, "Oh wow," it's pointed to her. It's like, that can't be a coincidence. That is perfect, subtle detail there. I absolutely love it. Like, that is so good. Or even, like, just, the moment they go to the restaurant and they're at the pizza place together. That moment with them at the restaurant there gave me so many Save the Date vibes. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, this is just Save the Date from Ronnie Anne's perspective. Like, even like with Save the Date, where Lincoln was like denying his feelings for Ronnie Anne and she was denying her feelings for Lincoln, it's like Save the Date is Lincoln's perspective and Horoscope is Ronnie Anne's perspective. It's like, it was basically Save the Date 2.0. And then even at the restaurant, when like Ronnie Anne was telling Hector, "Oh, could you play a song for us? I'm sure Lincoln would love to hear one of your songs." And then Hector starts playing that song about young love. Lincoln makes this grin and like he's grinning at Hector playing the song, and then he looks back at Ronnie Anne, where I'm like, man, Lincoln is really into a song about them being in love. It reminds me of the scene in Save the Date where that guy was gonna play Musica, and then Lincoln goes, "No, no Musica," and then Ronnie Anne kind of stops Hector from singing. It's like another parallel to that. Even in the episode, there's a part where, in the episodes of the Casagrandes, they have those color transitions where it's like the city backgrounds will have different colors and they'll transition into another scene. The transition colors in Horoscope are orange, pink, and purple. And that just can't be a coincidence, because orange and purple, Lincoln and Ronnie Anne, and the pink in the middle has to either represent love or something else, I'm not sure. But it's definitely hinting at Lincoln and Ronnie Anne, i.e. being the romantic couple, because, like, I know I've seen some of the, because, like, in some of the other Casagrandes episodes, like, when they had a Sid and Ronnie Anne episode, the transition colors would be purple and blue, obviously signifying Sid and Ronnie Anne, whereas this was orange and purple signifying Lincoln and Ronnie Anne, and I think the pink in the middle was symbolizing love in some sort of way. Maybe, I don't know. It could have been just a coincidence, but to me it's like orange and purple are Lincoln and Ronnie Anne. So again, the animators knew exactly what they were doing. And even, like, again, with the scene where Lincoln comes in the beginning and he's like, "I brought you your favorite Flippy, it's grape." It's like, he remembers her favorite flavor. It's so cute. It reminds me of Back Out There, where he remembered her favorite song and her favorite wrestler. It's like, he remembers her favorite things. It's so adorable. I love it. It's like, because again, like, when he's bringing her gifts, it's like in City Slickers, where he brought her the Royal Woods hoodie, which I hope she still has that hoodie. I would love them to actually bring that back. If they can reference, if you can reference Shell Shock Casagrandes, please bring back Ronnie Anne's Royal Woods hoodie. Like, please bring that back. Honestly, we would all love to see it, so thank you. But, like, the fact that he's always bringing her gifts to the city is so great. But even again, like, the fact that Lincoln had all this prepared. You know, like, he brought Rochelle, he brought the little carrier, he brought the Flippy, he brought the suit, the tie, the shoes, and rings. Like, the moment that Lincoln is presenting his magic trick to Ronnie Anne, and it's like, gets down on his knee, pulls out the ring, and is like, "What's going on? Why is everybody looking at me like this?" It's like, Lincoln, honey, you didn't have to go all out for a magic trick. Like, what? It's like, you literally, like, acted like you were gonna propose to her. You didn't have to get down on your knee and, like, pull out the ring like that. It's like, dude, you're giving off so many vibes. It's, like, crazy. He's like, oh, no, I'm not that bad at magic. It's like, I think you know exactly what you're doing. Like, again, like, the fact that, like, also with, like, how much trust Lincoln has in Ronnie Anne now. In the season 3 episode, Antique Off, none of Lincoln's friends liked magic. Clyde didn't like it, Stella didn't like it, Rusty, Liam, Zach, they all hated magic. And that was so upsetting because, like, none of his friends like magic, even where they don't want to go to a magic show with him. Whereas, like, with here, he wanted to perform this magic trick in front of Ronnie Anne because he thought that maybe she would like it because, like, maybe she doesn't hate magic. Maybe she never said that, you know? Like, she probably knows he does magic, and it's like, oh, well, Ronnie Anne doesn't hate magic, so maybe I could perform this in front of her and do a little practice with her to see if she'll like it. And then, like, the moment he does the magic trick, he's like, oh, thanks for letting me perform this magic trick for the school talent show. Without practice, it would have been super awkward. And she's, like, blushing at him. It's like, oh, she's blushing at him, so cute. But it's like, he trusts her so much. That's just so great that, like, yeah, she really did like his magic trick. And even at the end where he's like, for my final act, I will disappear. Abracadabra, just, like, disappears. And she's, like, just kind of, like, going along with her. She's like, and then, like, she sees him, like, pulling on the car. She just giggles a little bit. It's like, oh, she just likes its magic. It's so precious. Like, I made this tweet on Twitter where I was saying, like, I hope maybe in the future Ronnie Anne does perform, like, some magic trick or something, or does a little trick, and, I don't know, like, Sid or somebody is like, hey, how'd you do that? And Ronnie Anne's like, oh, Lincoln's been teaching me. It's like, oh, please let that happen. I love Ronnie Anne just to learn to, like, love magic because of Lincoln. It's like, oh, Lincoln taught me that. That'd be so adorable. Like, I really would like to see that if that happens. Or maybe, like, when they're talking on the phone, like it's, like, showing off a magic trick to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, do that again. Like, that would be so precious if they do that. Then, of course, at the end of the episode where Ronnie Anne and Lincoln are about to leave, and she's like, hey, Link, thanks for coming to visit. And then she's about to, you know, like, punch him again. But then she pulls him in for a hug and says, I'm so glad we've stayed friends. And he's like, of course, why wouldn't we be? It was so precious. Like, that hug was a continuation of the hug from Relative Chaos, where, like, Relative Chaos, she was about to hit him, but then she felt bad. Then she pushed into him, and then, like, he hugged her and smiled. But here, she actually, like, was gonna, like, you know, punch him again, but she, like, smiled, and then she pulled him right in, and as he was, like, looking down at her, hugging him, she was like, I'm so glad we're friends. He's like, of course, why wouldn't we be? Like, it's like, she, remember when she said, oh, don't get used to me hugging you, and now she's just, like, wanting to hug him. I think it's such great character growth on her end, that she's starting to learn to really appreciate her loved ones. Like I said before, that, like, with her family members, like the Casagrandes, Ronnie Anne's still learning to express love for family and friends, especially to her friends. I think Sid, she's really started to open up and really care about Sid, and started to appreciate Sid and love Sid, whereas Lincoln is very special to her, but again, she's so conflicted on her feelings on him because he is her friend, but she also has more feelings for him than she thinks she does. That's why it's taking her a long time to express her feelings for him, because she's afraid that if she gives off the wrong vibes, you know. But I think it's just really great that she's starting to progress her feelings for him and start to show off her real feelings for him for a little bit, especially just, like, showing that affection to him. And I'd really like to see more of that, like, them hugging in the future, just showing that progression of her feelings for him. Like, that's the one thing I'm just really hoping for, is just to see Ronnie inside her feelings to Lincoln. Like, that's the best thing for me right now. The one thing I think she's thinking about is, like, please give me Ronnie and character development on her feelings for Lincoln, please. Like, it was just really cute seeing them hug again. Like, the moment I saw that hug, I screamed so loud, and then, like, this is kind of embarrassing, but, like, the moment that, like, that episode ended, I was so happy, but then I saw the hug on Twitter, like, somebody took a picture of it, and I literally, like, I'm gonna confess this for a second, like, this is gonna be so weird, but, like, the moment I saw the hug on Twitter, I broke down and cried. Like, I literally broke down and cried for a good 20 minutes. That's how much I love Lincoln and Ronnie Anne. Like, that's how much this episode made me so happy. Because it was like, I finally got what I've been waiting for a long time in the show, which was Ronnie Anne finally opening up her feelings to Lincoln and really learning to progress her feelings for Lincoln and show her side of her feelings to Lincoln, that he is one of her best friends and she cares about him, and to know that there's going to be like, maybe there's going to be an arc between Ronniekin is like the greatest thing that ever happened in my entire life. Like, I mean, well, obviously there's one thing, you know, when I drew Lincoln and Ronnie and Sid and Isabella Solid, that was great, but just having the whole episode of Horoscope was just a blessing to me, and just to know that there was another Ronniekin hug, and to know that there's going to be more in the future, I actually broke down and cried because of how much I love these two so much. Like, obviously everybody knows I love them so much, but just thinking about Lincoln and Ronnie, and every time I think about them, it's like I just love them so much, man. I do. I absolutely adore them. Like, oh my gosh, like, just being so invested in their relationship for such a long time, to know that I got an episode like this, an episode I never thought would ever happen in the show, is crazy to me. And we're going to talk about that in What is the Future of Ronniekin. So what do I think is the future of Ronniekin? Well, again, the fact that we got Horoscope in the first place. To know that this episode actually ever happened. I don't think that this episode would ever happen in the main show. I don't think the main show ever wanted Ronniekin to be a main focus. Again, the only episode we got about that is City Slickers, and, well, I mean, Shell Shock in season 2. I mean, City Slickers was like, there was plot A and plot B, of course, but Shell Shock was the episode with the main focus, and that was in 2017. And then we got this episode, and I never thought that we would ever get an episode where they focus on Ronnie Anne's feelings for Lincoln, and to see that side of her feelings to him, where she values him as a friend so much and really cares about him. I never thought would ever happen, ever. Like, I feel like the Casagrandes was just tailor-made for this episode. I mean, if Ronnie Anne would have never moved, maybe we would have gotten an episode like this in the main show, but of course she moved. But like, since she moved, if the Casagrandes would have never existed, I don't think we ever would have gotten this episode in the show. I mean, I guess maybe like it would have been from Lincoln's point of view, where he's like confused about Ronnie Anne being like acting this way, but even in the episode he was like, hey Ronnie Anne, are you okay? You're acting kind of weird, you know? Like, he was concerned about her. I think it was super sweet. But again, this episode without the Casagrandes would have probably never existed. But again, the fact that they made Ronnie Anne a main focus, and the fact that Lincoln is in the show and came into the show early on, like, this is episode 8 of the Casagrandes, came into the show early on before Lori. Lori, of all characters, Lori being Bobby's girlfriend, a very important character to Bobby, and was referenced so many times in the arc. Like, Bobby mentioned her so many times in the arc, and she and Bobby were like so important to the Loud House. I mean, Lori mentioned Bobby like once in season 4. I think it was in Washed Up. I think that's the only time she mentioned Bobby. I can't remember anything recently. But to know that Lincoln, of all characters, was the first character to appear in the Casagrandes from the Loud House and make it the first ever Loud House Casagrande crossover in the Casagrandes, and to have a focus on the Ronnie relationship, which I never thought would happen in the show, is still crazy to me. I never thought that they would do that. Like, they could have just not had Lincoln in the show at all. Like, they could have, like, completely just pushed Lori and Lincoln out of the show and be like, no, we're not having any Louds in the show. But they decided that, no, we got you guys. We are going to give you a Ronniekin episode, but wait, there's more. Just hang on, we got you. Like, when Mike Rupert said the shipping was going to continue, I never thought that this was going to be the case. But they delivered on it so well. Like, I cannot praise Horoscope enough for just giving me, like, everything I've ever wanted in the relationship. Exploring the relationship in a way I never thought the main show would do, or even the Casagrandes. I never thought this would happen. Because you guys know when they had the, when Miguel posted the preview of Lincoln being in the show, I was so happy I broke down and cried. Even on Discord, I screamed so loud. But, like, then knowing he was going to come very soon, especially when Live La Casa Loud happened. Of course, Live La Casa Loud! We got Live La Casa Loud, where Lincoln was hanging out with Ronnie and Sid. Then, of course, Lincoln and Ronnie and pranking Lobby. I never thought I needed Ronnie Kim pranking Lobby until now. That was the most blessed thing in my entire life. Or even like in the Hector story. In the Hector story in Live with Cuss Aloud, there's one little Ronnie Kim moment where, like, you know, Hector thinks that Ronnie is saying she wants to leave and wants to run away, but then she's saying, oh no, I was talking to Lincoln while we were playing like some version of Minecraft. It's like, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to throw in that Ronnie Kim. They were like, let's give you that Ronnie Kim. Like, oh, perfect. Like, they are really just really learning, they are really just embracing the ship. Like, even when they mentioned it at that panel where they're like, oh, do you ship Lincoln and Ronnie? I'm like, I literally like I dropped my phone. I was like, they actually acknowledged the Ronnie Kim relationship. What? And then I saw the Paley Center panel, and then being so supportive of it. Like, the cast and crew have been like really supportive of the Ronnie Kim relationship now. I think it's crazy to me that they're so supportive of it, and they're like, yeah, guys, we got you. It's like, oh my god, like, even that video Alex made where Isabella was talking to some of the kids, and she was like, oh, they're asking about Lincoln and Ronnie and if they like each other, and Alex just goes, ooh, it's Carl. It's like, oh my god. It's so crazy to me, like, that they have really just, like, established Roddykin as this ship tease in the Casagrandes, but I think it's just awesome because, again, they're exploring their relationship in a way the main show would have probably never done ever. The Casagrandes would never exist. I'm just saying, like, I am so happy that they finally have embraced the Roddykin friendship and are continuing to develop that to even more, because, again, like, to me, like, a lot of people ask me, like, do you think that, you know, Roddykin will become Endgame, or do you want them to become Endgame? Well, I mean, yes, it'll be great if Roddykin does become Endgame, but for me right now, because even though I talked about, like, oh, I do want to see the Roddykin confession, I do want them to kiss, obviously, because I'm like, kiss right now, but for right now, obviously, they need more development for their friendship, because, you know, we got a lot of hints of it in the main show, but to know that we got Horoscope that, you know, with Ronnie Anne, showing that Ronnie Anne really values Lincoln as a friend and sees him as very important to her life, I want to see more of that explored. I want to see more of their relationship explored, whether Lincoln makes phone cameos or Ronnie Anne mentions him in the show, but of course we'd like to see them again on screen together, obviously, so I really hope we don't have to wait that long for Lincoln to come back, but it would be a nice surprise if he made like a phone cameo or something, but for physical appearance, we'd like to see that. I hope that Ronnie Anne does appear in season 4. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. It was kind of like hinted at the Paley Center panel, but they're like, oh, you have to watch and see, so I don't know. I mean, season 5, we're getting crossover episodes, so we have to wait till season 5, but for the Casagrandes, we don't know when Lincoln's coming back, but we know he is coming back for sure, so they are hinting a Roddykin arc in the Casagrandes, and I'm curious as to if anything that happens with Roddykin, the spinoff, will affect the main show. I don't know, because they do take place in the same universe, technically, but maybe it's like its own universe where Roddykin is like endgame-ish, you know? I mean, obviously Lobby has not been in the Casagrandes yet. I mean, I guess Lori will probably appear eventually, obviously, but I think for now, they're keeping Lobby the main OTP in the Loud House, and they're making Roddykin the OTP in the Casagrandes, which, not gonna complain there. You know, if we're getting Roddykin in the Casagrandes, absolutely, but maybe it'd be nice to, like, have Lincoln mention her in the main show again, because we haven't had that since season 1, you know, where she didn't appear, but he referenced her, so if Lori can mention Bobby so many times, why can't Lincoln just mention Ronnie Anne the Blue, be like, oh, hey, I'm gonna go, like, visit Ronnie Anne, or I'm gonna go video chat with her or something, you know? But, like, have Ronnie Anne mention Lincoln in the show or something, you know? Or he doesn't appear, but she mentions him again. Like, that'll be nice. Because we had Friended where he made a cameo on the phone, but she didn't mention him in the arc whatsoever. Bobby mentions Lori so many times, obviously because Lori and Bobby, you know, Lori and Bobby, but, like, again, if you're going to make Roddykin a very important established relationship in the Casagrandes, have, like, Ronnie and mention Lincoln in the Casagrandes when he's not there, to know that they are still very important to each other. But, you know, all these hints we're getting of this relationship, I think, is honestly going to be a crazy ride. Like, it's going to be crazy seeing their build-up. Like, I'm so excited for their build-up. Like, if we get season 2 of Casagrandes, you know, we'll probably get more, but I don't know what they're, like, I can't tell you what they're planning with Roddykin. I'm not Ernesto. I can't say Destino and say that they are destined to be each other, but I can tell you, I can quote Rosa by saying, don't be so close-minded, the universe works in mysterious ways. And that was Rosa hinting that the Ronnie relationship is going to be more than what we expect it to be. We don't know what's planned for these two, but I feel like in my gut that something's going to happen with these two. I don't know yet, but my guess for it is that we're just going to see Ronnie Anne developing her feelings for Lincoln more and just see more of that ship tease. Because again, this episode was just so much ship tease. Like, it was just ship tease the episode. Like, I absolutely adore everything about Horoscope. I just love it so much. Like, it's just the best episode right now. But I'm thinking to myself, how can they follow up Horoscope? How can they follow up a great episode like that? But I know for a fact that they gave us that episode, that they are going to give us a great follow-up for the Ronnie relationship. So this episode was just great looking back at the Ronnie relationship because, again, I'm so passionate about these two. And seeing how much Horoscope has impacted the relationship more than I thought it was good, than I ever thought was going to happen in the main show or even in the spinoff. It's just crazy to me looking back at it and thinking, man, they really did their homework, you know? They really looked at the Ronnie relationship and were like, okay, we'll reference Shell Shock, we'll look back at their relationship and be like, we're going to develop it more. Like, that's just crazy to me that they actually, like, did this episode and did justice to a relationship that really didn't have much going for it in the main show, but now with the spinoff and Ronnie and being the main focus, I know that later down the line we will see more of the Ronnie relationship development. So if you have any questions about the podcast and want to discuss the podcast with me, you can contact me over Twitter at xsunnyclips or at the podcast's Twitter, Casagrandes Chats. And this is going to be the last episode of 2019, and when we'll see you again, I don't know. It might be a very long time before Casagrandes Chats comes back because we don't know when new episodes of the show or any content is coming out. I mean, if some new content comes out for the Loud House or the Casagrandes, I will be here to report about it, but I don't think we're going to get any new content from the main show or the spinoff until 2020. So I want to say thank you guys for all the support for this podcast. I wanted to dedicate this episode to all you guys believing in me in this podcast and hearing how much passion I have for Lincoln and Ronnie Anne as a relationship, and to know that we got this episode was just amazing to me, and to look back at how much their relationship has developed was for the episode 10 special. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time in 2020 on Casagrandes Chats.